Hi, welcome to Overthinking Entrepreneur. I'm Megan, and I've had a successful online business for a few years now, and I think I overthought probably about 90% of my decisions along the way. Honestly, I just overthought whether I should say 90% or pretty much every decision in this intro. So if you find that relatable, you are definitely in the right place. In this podcast, I will help you get out of overthinking and into action so that your online business can finally start growing. Are you happy with the engagement that you get on your social media post? That's what we're going to be talking about today. This is probably one of the absolute most common things that people either complain to me about or ask questions about. I can't get people to engage. I'm so frustrated. I feel like I'm trying so hard. I'm trying everything and nothing works. Why won't they engage with me? What am I doing wrong? So I want to break it down for you in this episode to the 3 simple steps, the 3 things that you need to create more engagement on your posts. Now, of course, each of those 3 things, 3 things sounds deceptively simple, but it is a lot more simple than you're probably making it. So I want to just kind of talk you through all 3 of these and give you some really specific, actionable things that you can take right away and start doing and notice a big difference in your engagement. Because yes, to an extent, it's out of your hands. Yes, algorithms are tougher than they've ever been right now, and it's harder to get more people to see your posts and to get them to engage, and there's more content than ever, and so, maybe they're engaging with other people, but they don't have time to engage with you now, and I get it. There's a lot that goes into this, and it is a source of frustration, but I see so many people acting like it's completely out of their hands and like it's just mysterious and there's nothing you can do, and a post either gets engagement or it doesn't, and I don't believe that at all. I shouldn't say it all. Caveat, right? Every now and then there's a post that is a good post that should get engagement, and for whatever reason it just doesn't. But 9 times out of 10, I can show you why a post did or did not get engagement. I actually just did a content review session where I did this in the challenge that I'm running right now. People could submit a post, and most of them picked their post that got the least engagement and just wanted me to help them understand why. And so I went through and one by one, I read them aloud and then explained why I thought that. And they told me it was so helpful. So I wanted to talk about this week because you are a lot more in control of how much engagement you're getting than you might think that you are. No, we cannot actually go into someone's, phone and force them to click the comment button and type out a good comment. But it's not as mysterious as you might think that it is. So before we get into this, let me just back up for a second and talk about why does engagement matter? Because you'll see a lot of people who say, don't worry about engagement. I make 6 figures and I don't have any engagement and blah, 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 blah. And I want to just share my perspective on this, and then you can decide where you land, because you don't have to share my opinion, but I think engagement matters because engagement impacts who sees your post. So like I mentioned, with all the social media algorithms, how much engagement a post gets is a huge factor in how much reach that post gets. So it's possible that you're putting out great content, but no one is seeing it and therefore not engaging, and then it's not going to bring you the sales in your business. So yes, there are plenty of times where someone will never like a single one of your posts and then go and purchase from you, and that's amazing. That's awesome. But I think that engagement does matter because it impacts how many people see what you're posting. And so if you're over there thinking, well, engagement doesn't matter, so-and-so successful person told me that it doesn't matter, and so I'm not going to worry about it, and people are watching and they're going to buy, and they might be. They probably are, at least a few are, but maybe it's not as many as you're banking on. Maybe just because someone else told you that engagement doesn't matter and now you've decided that. And why I keep saying that, I see the problem here. I see a lot of really successful people tell you not to worry about social media engagement, but what they're not saying is that all of their sales come from their email list of 20,000 people. If you have an email list of 20,000 people, or whatever sizable email list that you have, if it's bringing you sales, amazing. But if you're feeling frustrated about your social media engagement, I'm going to take a guess that that's because it's tied to your sales, your lack of sales. So that's why I sometimes get annoyed by people who say, don't worry about your engagement. I don't get any engagement and I make a ton of money. And it's like, yeah, that's great. But your posts aren't where that money's coming from. It's the fact that you send 1 million emails and you've been working for years to build your huge email list. That's where your sales come from. So yes, keep in mind that engagement is not everything. There are people who have a ton of engagement and make no money. There are people who have no engagement and make a ton of money. And then there's kind of everything in between. But I just want you to keep in mind, if you're hearing someone tell you that engagement doesn't matter, where are they trying to get their sales from, and where are you trying to get your sales from? If your ultimate goal is to build your email list, amazing. I think that should be a goal of yours. But I also know that many of the people in my audience, the main way that they want to bring in sales is through their social media posts. And if that's you, if your posts are the main way that you want to bring in sales, but your posts aren't getting engagement, that's a bad sign. Because engagement gives you an indicator of if people are liking what you're posting. I want you to think of it as feedback. I don't want you to let it impact your mental health or make it mean something that it doesn't. It does not mean whether someone loves you or values you as a person. It has nothing to do with that, okay? A lot of times we take things way too personally in business, and I know it's really hard not to when you're a personal brand and when you're the face of the business and, it feels like a rejection of you. It's not, okay? But we have to keep in mind that if your posts are the main way that you want to bring in engagement or you want to bring in sales, but then you're not getting engagement on your posts, that probably means that your posts aren't working. That probably means that something has to change in order to improve your content and make sure that it's connecting with people. Because if they're not engaging, they might not even be reading, or maybe they're reading, but it's not getting through to them. Just because you're making a post does not mean that sales will follow. So I think that you want to keep in mind that engagement shows you if you're on the right track with your audience and with what you're posting. If you're working really hard and it feels like pulling teeth and no one engages, there's a problem. And it's one of the three things that we're about to talk about here. But I just want to explain why I think engagement matters. Because if literally no one is engaging with your posts, you're probably not about to have a six-figure business just fall into your lap and, without doing some other things behind the scenes. So I think also that engagement just helps you understand what's working and what's not with individual posts. So you can kind of look across the past week or so. Which post did you make that got the most engagement and which ones got the least? And what can you learn from that? And I'm always thinking of it as, what can this teach me and how can I improve and how can I get better and how can I take this as feedback? And again, not personal, not an attack, just feedback on whether they liked this particular post or not. Where I do want to caution you, though, is that I don't want you to let this impact your mental health. And I don't want you to be completely stressed out over your engagement all the time or beating yourself up if a post that you thought was going to do well just didn't. That still happens to me. I teach engagement and I have been doing this for years. And I still every now and then have a post that I thought was going to do really well and it just doesn't. Sometimes it's just out of your hands. Sometimes you can do all the right things and it just doesn't connect with people the way that you think that it's going to. And like I said, it's not personal. It's not about someone disliking you or you being not enough or you being annoying or there's something wrong with you. Please don't make it mean that. Please don't. What we can do is we can take something that's just neutral, whether someone liked your post or not or commented on your post or not. There's a million reasons why someone might have not commented on your post. Maybe they read it and they absolutely loved your post, and then something happened, like maybe their toddler all of a sudden dumped an entire box of Cheerios on the floor. I don't know whose toddler would do something like that. Certainly not mine last night. But, maybe their toddler dumped an entire box of Cheerios on the floor and they had to set their phone down and go deal with that before their dog ate an entire box of Cheerios. And then when they came back, their feed refreshed and they lost your post and they forgot to go back and comment on it. But they genuinely loved it. They wanted to comment. And life happened, okay? I know this is a very specific example, but this is the reality. Things happen. People are busy. Sometimes they didn't even see your post. Maybe they had something going on. Maybe they had a really stressful day and they didn't even open social media last night. And I just want to give you that reminder because it's so easy to take these personal and run with them and make up stories and assign a meaning to them that is frankly just not there. If someone didn't comment on your post who usually does, it doesn't mean that suddenly they hate you or that you messed up. It could be a million different things going on. So try really hard while being aware of the engagement that you're getting and working to improve it, not letting it impact how you feel about yourself or your business or your mental health in any way, because there's so many different things that could be going on. Okay, so anyway, that's my 2 cents. I think engagement does matter if social media posts are the main way that you're trying to bring in sales. I think that engagement shows you if you're on the right track and if your content is connecting with your audience. And I think that it helps you get in front of more people because the more engagement you get, the more reach that your posts get. You just always want to keep in mind that not to look at your engagement at the expense of your mental health. Okay, now let's talk about the 3 things that actually create engagement. And I'm using that term intentionally, create engagement. I want you to shift your mindset in this way because most of the people that I talk to have the mindset of engagement, whether it happens or not, is this like mystical, no one knows. Who knows what causes engagement? Will this post do well? Will it flop? I have no idea. And they also seem to have the impression that it's completely out of their hands. And again, yes, it kind of is in that we cannot force anyone else to comment on our stuff. But the way that you write the post and certain things that you do make a huge difference in whether someone is going to take the time to leave a comment or not. And that's what I mean by creating engagement. Engagement is not something that some people have and you just never will. It's something that you can learn to create intentionally if you follow these 3 steps that I'm about to share with you. So the first one is that you need the right people. You need people who care about what you're posting about in order for them to engage with it. So I've probably told this story on the podcast multiple times, and I'll probably tell it a whole bunch more times during the lifetime of this podcast. I'm just warning you right now. But when I first started going live, which was kind of the first thing that really got me traction on social media and really helped my business gain that initial momentum, I got no engagement on my videos. I would get a pity like, I guess I shouldn't say pity. It was out of love, not out of pity. But I would get what sometimes felt like a pity like from my Nana, my grandmother, and one of my best friends. And that was pretty much it. Those were the only people engaging with my videos. And it's not because they were bad videos. I mean, I was certainly nowhere near as comfortable on camera back then as I am now, but there was still some pretty good content in those videos, or at least most of those videos. I haven't rewatched them in a while now, so I guess I shouldn't say all of them, but most of them had some pretty good content that I'd probably still stand by today. The problem wasn't the video. The problem wasn't me. The problem was the people who were seeing the video. Because when I first started doing that, I made a transition. I started in network marketing myself, and then I made the transition into coaching. But while I was still in network marketing, I started doing videos with social media tips. And then especially as I transitioned into coaching, I was doing even more of that. And at the time, I simply didn't have an audience full of people that had a business because I had been trying to build an audience of people that I thought might be interested in my network marketing product. And back then I did not know what I was doing when it comes to audience growth. So I didn't do that right either now in hindsight. But that's what I was focused on. These were not people that already had a business because I thought I need people who don't have a business so they can join mine. So then I started doing videos giving business tips, and they just didn't care. It wasn't relevant. It's not that they hated me or that they were bad videos. It's that they didn't have a business. They had no reason to watch the video. It just wasn't relevant to them. So when you are posting, you need to make sure that you have the right people in your audience. And this is why I talk so much about audience growth and figuring out your ideal client. And I know some of you are probably sick of me talking about it, but also have you actually done it and made it a priority? Because if not, I have to keep talking about it because that is the source of the vast majority of problems in your business. And that's why it's so important for me to keep talking about it. But you have to start connecting with new people. And not just any new people, but the right new people. People where your content is relevant. My go-to example used to always be, and now it's still a good example, just in a different way, but when I first really started immersing myself in the online business world, I saw a lot of people who were moms. A lot of moms using being a mom to help them build their audience and connect with people. They were showing tons of photos of their kids, and they were giving tips about fun activities that they did with their toddler or something that they learned to diffuse a meltdown or whatever. And at the time, this was many years ago, I wasn't even sure if I wanted kids back then. So I did not watch their videos and I did not read their posts and I did not comment on them. If I did occasionally, it was just if they were someone that I cared about and I wanted to show my support, but that was it. The content was not relevant to me. I did not have a child. Therefore, all of their tips about being a parent were not relevant to me. It wasn't bad content, and I want to keep reiterating that. A lot of times your content is not the problem. It's not that it was bad content, it was that it was not relevant to me in my life, and I'm busy. I mean, I laugh so much. Well, I mean, it's not that I never had things going on, but when I used to think that I was busy, what the heck was I doing? Because now I'm trying to juggle a business and a toddler who's home with me full time, and now I'm like, how did I ever used to think I was busy? But even then I felt busy, and now I feel more busy than ever. There is more content than ever out there right now competing for people's limited time. And so they are simply not going to watch something or read something, even if it's short, if it's not relevant to them. So you have to make sure that you have the right people in your audience, that the kind of content that you want to create, the things that you want to post about, that you're connecting with the right people who are going to be interested in that. And that's the key, what I just said here. What so many people do wrong is they try and mold their content to the people who are already in their audience instead of creating the audience that is right for the content that they want to create. I hope that made sense, and I hope that just hit you, and maybe that is something that you needed to hear. I don't want you to go into your group, especially if you have a Facebook group that has like 100 people that joined right when you first started your business, and they're mostly your friends and family who joined to do you a favor, and that's really it. I do not want you to go into that group of those 100 people that joined to do you a favor and say, what do you want to see in here? And you start giving them options, and you say, do you want to see recipes? Do you want tips? Do you want this? Do you want that? And no one says a word. No one votes, or maybe they vote because they love you. But then you try and create all this content and they're not engaging, and you're saying, what is going on? I'm trying to do the stuff that they want. When the problem is they're just not the right people to begin with. And you're never going to make other people happy. And other people will also tell you that, yeah, that sounds great. I would love to watch that. Oh, I'd love that. That would be so helpful. A lot of times they're people pleasers and they want to tell you what they want to hear. Or in theory, they think, yeah, that does sound like great content. That does not mean they're going to make it a priority and sit down and actually watch or read and engage with it. So you are setting yourself up for failure by trying to ask people what they want from you and then doing more of that. Instead, what I need you to do is look internally and figure out, what are you passionate about? What do you want to talk about? Because there is an audience out there for literally anything. Some of the stuff that is on YouTube that gets a lot of views blows my mind. Like, there is an audience for anything, you guys. No matter what you want to talk about, there are people out there that want to hear you talk about it. It's more about finding them is usually the problem. So instead of trying to mold your content to the people that are already there, what I want you to do is think about, what do I actually want to talk about? What am I super excited about talking about? And then how can I find the right people and get it in front of them? And that's it. That's step one. Step two, they really kind of tie together, but step two is posting things they care about. So once the right people are there, now you need to be posting things that they care about and things that are relevant to them, things that are interesting to them, things that they want to read and they want to watch. And this comes down to really knowing who you're looking for. And again, this starts with you. This does not start with saying, well, let me go look at all the customers who've ever bought from me, especially if most of the customers who bought from you are people that you kind of just chanced into. They're friends and family that wanted to do you a favor. You've had a few people buy from you here and there, but there's not a whole lot of intention in the customer base that you've built so far. Then what you need to do is really think about, who do I want to work with and how can I help them and what can I talk about that they're going to care about? And once you get that clear idea of who you're looking for, your ideal client is the term that I like best for it. There's a ton of different things that you can say. But once you've figured out who your ideal client is, now you can dive deeper into, okay, now that I know who I'm looking for, now I know who my ideal client is, what kind of content is going to be interesting to them? And then you can think about, what are their struggles? What are the things that they're going through? What are the things that are happening for them right now that might be relevant and interesting? What are the things that they probably love? How can I give them a little pep talk today? Or how can I, on and on and on. Once you really start to know who you're looking for, then you can work backwards from that and say, what type of content is going to be most interesting to that person? And this will get easier the more that you do it, the more that you keep posting and the more that you keep building your audience and the more that you keep looking at the engagement that you're getting, because the engagement that comes in will start to give you an indication of, did people like this or did they not like this? And then you can use that to help steer and guide and get yourself on the right track when it comes to your content, because you're posting things that they care about. You're posting things that are actually things that they want to read about. And the other thing that you really need to think about is, how can I speak their language? How can I put it into words that's going to make sense to them? So, for example, let's say, I should have thought of an example before I started recording and I did not. So, okay. Here's an example. I'm borrowing this from one of my awesome squad members who is working on a workshop that she's putting on, and she was sharing that she learned how cow's milk can impact acne. So here's the deal. If she were to turn around and let's say that she was going to do a live video and she writes out her caption, and remember, when you go live, the caption is all people have to go on that determines whether they click to see what you're talking about and if it's for them or not. So if her caption was, you should stop drinking cow's milk, and she wants people to click and hear that so that they can learn that this is a factor in their acne, that just doesn't really make sense, because the people that need to hear it would be more intrigued by something like, I just learned the craziest thing about acne. And now people who have acne say, oh, tell me more. I have acne. I hate it. I want to, tell me more of what you're saying. So it's two different approaches to share the same thing. But the person who is stressed about their acne doesn't care about cow's milk. They should. You know that they should, because you know that there's a link there for them. But that's not what they're out there saying and what they're out there looking for. So we need to make sure that we're speaking their language. Here's another example. Let's say that you sell supplements. What you don't want to do is be out there talking about how, your supplements are made, they're such great quality, and, they're so pure. I mean, that matters to some people. I guess maybe that's a bad example that I chose. People do care about that. It's not that it doesn't matter. But what you don't want to do is say, oh my gosh, I have this amazing vitamin K supplement or this amazing vitamin B supplement. Most people don't know what vitamin K or what vitamin B or any of the vitamins do. And to be honest, I know what vitamin B does, but I don't know why I picked K. I have no idea what K does. So I'm a perfect example here. If that's the direction that you're going in your content, if you're trying to say, I have the best vitamin B out there, okay, that's great. But most people don't even know that they're looking for vitamin B. So instead, what you need to do is teach them about, hey, you know how you feel tired all the time? Did you know that you might have a vitamin B deficiency? Now you're speaking their language. They're like, hold on. Yes, I am tired all the time. I definitely know that. Tell me more. When we try and lead with the solution instead of the problem, sometimes it's confusing for people. And this depends on whether they are aware of their own solution or not. So sometimes with the problem, they know what they need to do and they just haven't found it. But sometimes they don't even understand the root cause of what's going on. And that's where it becomes your job to fill in those gaps for them and help make that connection. So you have to make sure that not only are you posting things they care about, but in a way that makes it clear to them that they should care about this. So I hope I used a good example there to help you kind of understand that, right? Just remember, if we want people to understand the link between the milk and the acne, we need to lead with the acne, not with the milk. So I hope that helps kind of solidify that there for you. And then the third thing is that you need to give them something to engage with. And this is the most important and the most common that I see. Well, I don't know if I should say the most common, but the most immediate and the most fixable. I would say not having the right people is probably the overall biggest problem that most people have. But learning to write your posts and give people something to engage with makes such a huge difference, and it's such an easy change. And this is the biggest problem that I see most people struggling with. So what I mean by this is, have you ever read someone's post and maybe they were getting a little bit vulnerable and they shared a personal story and you read it and you think, wow, that was so beautiful. I love that. And you're thinking to yourself like, wow, that really impacted my night. I'm so glad I read that. I feel so much closer to this person. But you don't know how to put this into words, and you might feel a little bit weird typing that out, and you don't really know what to say. So what do? You click the heart react and you move on with your night. Right? And now that other person, the person who made the post, is sitting there saying, oh my gosh, I thought this was such a great post. I got so vulnerable. No one is commenting. I think I messed up. Like, maybe they don't like this post. Maybe they hate me. Maybe they're judging me for sharing this. Maybe they think I'm annoying. When in reality, they read it and they loved it, but you didn't give them something to engage with. So they didn't. If all that I have to say, and this is just a me thing, although I think other people feel the same way. But for me personally, I can't stand those Instagram bots. I mean, they're showing up on Facebook now too, but I always think of them as an Instagram thing first, just because that's where they are most prevalent and always have been. But on Instagram, if you make a post, especially if you use a hashtag, how you might instantly get a weird comment that's like, great post, great photo, I love your content. I'm trying to remember, a friend of mine got one that was so hilariously generic. The reason why they seem so off and generic is because these bots are set up so that every time a post is made using a certain hashtag or, whatever factor they're using to make it happen, whenever a post meets that criteria, that comment is automatically left. So they have to try and make it generic enough that it can work for all of these different posts that the bot might leave it on, but it doesn't really end up working on any of them. And so my friend got one that was something like, I love the things that you post in the places that you post content. And it was like, what? Why would you possibly think that was a good beneficial comment to leave anywhere? But so anyway, my rule of thumb is that I never want to sound like an Instagram bot. I never want to be saying something so generic. If I would feel like an Instagram bot, I will just hit the heart react and keep scrolling. I will not type out a comment that makes me feel like a bot. So let's say that you make a post and it's amazing, but all that I would have to say is, this is a great post. That makes me feel like an Instagram bot. Great post. Great post. That feels so generic to me. I will not take the time to leave that kind of comment. So there's probably a whole bunch of times that I read a post that you made, or, someone read a post that you made and loved it, but they didn't have anything other to say than great post, and they didn't want to type that out. So they clicked like and moved on. So it comes down to giving people something to engage with, and specifically giving them something to say, helping them comment. Comment is the biggest form of engagement that I am focused on myself. I like likes, don't get me wrong, likes still help. There's nothing wrong with those. Shares are great. They're kind of the ultimate, but I also feel like trying to focus on and encourage shares ends up making your content feel really weird, and sometimes when your stuff gets shared, it's not as beneficial as you think that it would be. So to me, focusing on comments is the sweet spot for what you really want to put your effort towards when it comes to creating that engagement. Comments are weighted more than other types of engagement. They help you connect with your audience and build that relationship, which I should have mentioned in the beginning on why I think engagement matters, and I didn't, so I'm going to mention it now. When someone comments on your post and you comment back, each time you have a back and forth exchange with someone, you are helping to build that relationship with them, build that connection, and build that trust, which is huge. If they're a stranger and they don't know you, building that trust so that they might eventually feel comfortable buying from you is really important. So what we need to do is give people something to engage with. And what I mean by that is, whenever you make a post or whenever you write a post, before you actually post it, I want you to take a step back, read it over, and ask yourself, if this post came across my newsfeed, would I have something to say? Would I have something to say about this post that isn't just great post? And if you wouldn't, you just simply need to add something. So the easiest way that this can happen, and I call this an engagement piece, does your post have an engagement piece, which means something that you put there specifically to give people something to say? Because that makes the biggest difference when it comes to the comments rolling in. And it's been really fun to see. I'm doing that challenge right now, like I mentioned earlier. And every time that I do one of these challenges, I always give them a training before we start, and I explain this idea of engagement pieces and helping them understand how to do it effectively. And then they always say, oh my gosh, I'm getting so many more comments. This is amazing. And it's because it makes such a big difference when people actually have something to say. So the easiest type of engagement piece, and what I do most often, is to ask a question. Give people a question to answer, because then they'll just take the time, they'll sit down, they'll take a minute, they'll answer your question, and boom, you have a comment, and then you can go back and forth with them as much as you want to. So asking a question can definitely be the easiest way. Now, when it comes to questions, it's definitely an art, and it's something that you'll get better at the more that you do it. And we were just talking about this in the content review live that I did, where a lot of times I would have to kind of explain to them, like, this isn't a bad question in and of itself, but here's why it wasn't a great engagement piece question. So some things that you want to keep in mind. It needs to be a question that's really easy for people to answer. If you ask me, what is your number one favorite book of all time? I have no idea. Now, favorites are tricky, because if you ask me what's your number one favorite movie of all time, I have an answer locked and loaded. It's The Princess Bride, and if you haven't seen it, go watch it immediately. You are missing out. It's the best movie. But if you ask me my favorite book, I don't know. And similarly, if you ask me, what's the best advice you've ever been given? Or if you could go give your younger self some advice, or any of these like big, deep questions, that that takes more brain power than I'm willing to give when I'm scrolling social media. When I'm scrolling social media, I'm usually sitting on my couch and I want to just relax for a little bit. I want to turn my brain off. I don't want to think about the most impactful piece of advice I've ever been given in my life. Like, that is too much. You're asking too much of people most of the time. Now, some people, like I said, will have an answer locked and loaded to that. But I want you to always ask yourself, is this a really easy question for people to answer? Will most people know how to answer it, or would it require a lot of thought for them? And you want to make sure that it's going to be really easy, that they're going to know how to answer it. It really does just make such a difference, because sometimes we write a question that is very broad or very ambiguous, or, like I said, would take a lot of time and effort for someone to type out their answer. And a lot of times they just won't do it. So instead, you want to ask a question that they can answer. If they can answer in one word, amazing. Our goal is to get them to type more of a full sentence, but sometimes you have to build up to that. If you're not getting any engagement at all right now, one word is amazing. So if you can ask someone a question where, if you say something like, do you prefer hot or iced coffee? Okay, now someone can either say hot coffee or iced coffee. Or if they want to elaborate, if they like both, they have that option. But that is a very simple question that people can answer. And when you include a question, it can be about what your post was about, but it does not have to be. You can pull in kind of a random question. I'm a huge fan of putting a PS at the end of my post and then saying something totally random that's not related to the rest of the post. If that's not your style, that's okay. You don't have to do that, but that has always worked really well for me. You can also ask a question that's related to the photo. So let's say that you love going through your local coffee shop and getting an iced coffee. I personally am not the biggest iced coffee fan, except there's this one local coffee shop that makes the most delicious iced coffee. Whenever I happen to be near one, we moved, so I don't live as close to one anymore, and I'm sad. But whenever I happen to be near one, especially if it's warm outside, I'm getting an iced coffee because it's delicious. But anyway, let's say that I went and got one of those. And then I could take a photo in my car of me and my iced coffee, or it doesn't have to be in my car. It could be whatever I'm doing, wherever I took it to. I'm in Target with my iced coffee, whatever, right? But take a photo of you with your iced coffee. And then when you write your post, you could say, P.S., this is my favorite iced coffee from a local coffee shop. Do you like iced coffee or do you prefer hot? Boom. Done. So easy. That will get a bunch of comments. People have opinions. People love sharing their opinions. People know how to answer. It's very short and sweet, does not require a lot of brain power. Done. That will get a lot of comments onto your post. So it really just comes down to, have you given people something to engage with? So you could have made the exact same post but not included that part and gotten 0 comments, or you could include this simple little question at the end and gotten 25 comments of people telling you what kind of coffee they prefer. It really can make that much of a difference to make sure that you're giving people something to engage with. So a question, like I said, is the easiest way. And you want to make sure that the question is clear, that it's a real question, not a rhetorical question. So sometimes when someone shows me a post that they're surprised didn't get engagement, yes, there technically is a question there, but it feels more like it's part of the post. It feels like a setup. It feels rhetorical. It doesn't feel like a true question you're trying to ask me. So make sure that the question feels very defined and like a question that you really want them to answer. Make sure, like I said, it's easy for them to answer. We don't want them doing a lot of thinking or a lot of typing, because they just won't. So we want to make it super easy to answer, and we want to make sure it's something that anyone will have an answer to. And this one will take more time in practice, and I still botch this every now and then. Every now and then I ask a question that I think other people will relate to and have an answer to, and it just doesn't land the way that I expect that it will. But you'll start to kind of get a sense for, there are certain questions that feel like great questions for you to ask because you have an easy answer. But other people who've had different life experiences, they might not have an easy answer to that question. Or the other thing you really want to stay away from, which I touched on a little bit, but I want to just say more explicitly, if you say, what is your favorite or your number one or the best, people spiral. It is flabbergasting to me. It's not, because obviously my whole thing is overthinking, and that's the whole point of this podcast, and so I have an audience of overthinkers. But sometimes I'm like, you guys, it's not that deep. Just tell me, just pick a color you like. It doesn't have to be your number one favorite color of all time. But I am just telling you right now, if you use anything like that, best, number one, absolute favorite, people will way overthink it and they will not answer because they don't have one. So sometimes you can say your favorite or one of your favorite movies, or, something like that. What is a movie that you never get sick of watching? will probably get a lot more comments than what do you think is the number one best movie ever made. Do you see the difference? Like, it feels like a very, even though it's just a social media post, people are like, oh my gosh, if I make this comment, like I'm saying, what if I'm forgetting about a different movie that's even better? What if and what if people laugh at me? What if I look stupid? They spiral, I promise you. So just be mindful of anything like that when it comes to your question. Another thing that you can do for your engagement piece that does not have to be asking a question, you can use a photo. So if you know that you have a photo that's going to get people commenting, you can strategically use that on a post that you're worried might not get a lot of engagement that you want to make sure that it does. So let's say that you just got a new beautiful red lipstick, and you know that people are probably going to comment and say that they love that lipstick. That is considered an engagement piece. Same thing. Let's say that you just got a new dress or a new shirt. I have this dress. It's right next to me right now in my closet, actually. Unfortunately, it doesn't really fit anymore. I bought it when I was pregnant and taken off some of the baby weight, and now it's a little bit too loose. I'm going to see if I can take it in a little bit because I love it. But anyway, it has this really fun lemon print on it. And every single time that I wear it, every single time that I post a photo wearing it, a whole bunch of people will comment and say, oh my gosh, I love that lemon dress. That is so cute. So that's another good example. Now, you don't have to go out and like buy a whole new wardrobe, especially if it's not your style. This just happens to be my style, that I have a lot of fun, colorful, cutesy kind of stuff like that. But either way, it could be a beautiful jacket that you have. It could be a purse. It could be shoes or your outfit or your hair or whatever. If there's anything that you know people are going to compliment, that counts as a really good engagement piece. And I will strategically hold on to that photo until I have a post that I don't have a good engagement piece for and use it, because I know that's going to count as a really great engagement piece. Same thing if you're in a really cool place or something really interesting is happening. Maybe you went on a hike and you took a picture next to this like incredible view overlooking a cliff. That's probably going to be a good engagement piece because people are going to comment and say that's so beautiful, or where are you, or whatever, So thinking about what's in the photo. Where are you at? What are you doing? What's going on in the background? What are you wearing? What is there something that people will look at this photo and laugh? Maybe you took a photo and your dog is in the background making the most funniest, derpiest face. That's probably going to get some good comments, right? Like people, especially if you look beautiful and then your dog is in the background looking derpy, people are going to be like, look at your dog. That's going to get comments. So, and the more that you do this, the more that you'll really be able to predict what's going to get those comments. But so that's another way that you can do it, is with the photo. And then another way is if you do something that's funny or something that's really relatable, that is another thing that will make people want to stop and comment. So if they read a post and they think it's hilarious, they might stop and say, oh my gosh, that is so funny. But they also might, you have to be just a little bit careful with this one. They might hit that haha reaction button and call it a day. They might not always take the time to type out how funny that is. But if something is really funny or really relatable, a lot of times people will comment and say, yep, this is my life, or, oh, that same thing happened to me, or, and you can even encourage that. I know this is technically a question, but I feel like it's different than the way that I explain the question. But let's say that you say, have you ever forgot that you didn't screw the lid onto your water cup and went to pick it up and it fell over and spilled everywhere? Please tell me it's not just me. You can add something like that. So you can say, have you ever done this? Or am I alone? Am I the only one? Or you can say something like, please tell me I'm not the only one. And that will also encourage people to take the time to comment and tell you that same thing has happened to them. So, okay. I hope that you have found this really helpful and learned a lot. I do also just want to mention I have a free engagement guide and checklist that has a lot of this in a more brief written form. So I hope that listening to this has helped you. But if you have not grabbed my engagement guide yet, there is a link to that in the show notes, and it's completely free. Now, it will put you on my email list, just to be transparent. You can unsubscribe if you want to. I only email twice a week. I try to be really reasonable about it. Occasionally I'll email more if I'm doing a sale or something, but typically you'll only hear from me about twice a week. So I try to not be too obnoxious with the emails, but I do want to be transparent that you will be joining my email list if you download that guide. But it basically will kind of summarize what we talked about here today in a format that will let you remember it, because what I don't want you to do is listen to this episode and say, wow, that all makes so much sense. Now I understand why I don't get engagement, but then promptly forget and never implement what we talked about and be in the same place 6 months from now or a year from now. So make sure that you remember what we talked about here and make the changes that you need to, whatever that might be for you. and go ahead and grab that engagement guide. It also has a checklist that you can use once you have written a post before you actually post it. You can go through the checklist and make sure, did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do this? And that way you know that you've done all the right things to set yourself up to get some good engagement. So grab that if you think that you'll find it helpful, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode in general. Your action step for this week is to go make a post today and make sure that there is a very clear engagement piece. And if you feel brave, I would love for you to reach out to me. You can reach out to me on Facebook. You can post in my group. You can send me an email, whatever you want to do. But if you try this, and if you weren't previously doing the engagement piece and you try it and it goes really well, I would love to hear that. It makes me so happy when something that I've shared, when you guys reach out and tell me how much it helped you. So please feel free to share that with me. It would definitely make my day. I hope this episode inspires you to go take action on something you have been overthinking. As much as I wish you could, you cannot think your way to success, so promise me you're going to go take some action today. Head over to overthinkingentrepreneur.com to find all the cool stuff I've made for you over the years, like my free guide to getting more social media engagement and my Facebook group, Dynamite Entrepreneurs, which has a free course on social media basics.